Hello, dear students. I welcome you on the behalf of Victorian Kids School, Jodhpur. Before we begin, let's understand the teaching pattern. First, I will read a few paragraphs. You can read along with me by looking at the screen. This will help you learn proper pronunciation of words. Then, I will explain the meaning of those words which I feel are difficult for the students. Following this, I will explain all the paragraphs in simple words. When we are done reading the entire chapter, I will explain all the exercises that you need to do in your notebook in a separate video. You will be sent the reading material and the exercises through the mobile application of Victorian Kids School, Jodhpur. In case if you don't have the username or password, kindly contact on the number 94141 You must keep yourself updated on app. All further instructions and notifications will be sent through the app only. In this video, we will read and understand the first chapter of English literature for class 3rd. The name of the chapter is A Lesson in Kindness. In this chapter, Mr. Roy sees a boy hurting a poor dog. He decides to teach this boy a lesson. What lesson does he teach this boy? Let's see. Before we begin reading this chapter, let us understand the meaning and pronunciation of word MR. This word MR is abbreviation or short form of word Mr. Mr. is a title of respect used for men. We put it before the name of a man to give him respect. For example, if the name of your father is Kamal Singh, you would not simply say, "My father's name is Kamal Singh." Instead, you will say that my father's name is Mr. Kamal Singh. Why should you use Mr. before the name of your dad? It is because you want to give him respect as he is elder to you. Let's see some other examples. You would say Mr. Ratan Tata and not simply Ratan Tata. Similarly, instead of saying Amitabh Bachchan, you will say Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. You may see two different forms of writing Mr. One is simply MR and another way is MR followed by a dot. Both are correct. Simply MR is used in British English or the form of English used in Britain or the United Kingdom. MR dot is used in American English or the form of English used in America. Since we are using British English, we will simply write MR for Mr. and put no dot after it. Now let's begin. It was a Sunday morning. Mr. Roy was sitting in his room. He was reading a newspaper. Suddenly, Mr. Roy looked out of the window. There was a boy in the street. The boy had a bag slung over his shoulder. He took a sandwich out of his bag and began to eat it. In the street, there was a little dog. The dog saw the boy eating a sandwich. The boy showed it to the dog. The dog started wagging its tail. It wanted to have the sandwich to eat. The boy said to the dog, "Oh dog, do you want this sandwich?" Now I will explain you the meanings of the underlined words from previous paragraphs. The first phrase is look out of the window. It means that you are sitting inside the room and looking what is going on outside the window. In this picture, you can see Mr. Roy looking out of the window of his room. Next word is street, which is another term used for roads. The last word is slung, which is past participle of sling. It means to loosely hang something using straps. In this picture, you can see the boy has a bag slung over his shoulder. Sandwich. I know you already know the meaning of word sandwich. This is what a sandwich looks like. It has slices of bread on top and bottom, and in between the slices, we fill food items like tomato, onion, etc. The phrase wagging the tail means to move the tail from side to side. In this video below, you will see a dog wagging its tail. Look how the dog moves its tail left and right. Isn't it cute? Let us understand whatever we have read so far. Mr. Roy was reading the newspaper in his room on a Sunday morning. He watches a boy in the street out of his window. This boy takes out a sandwich from a bag hanging on his shoulder and starts eating it. Just then, he shows his sandwich to a little dog and asks if it wants to eat. The dog starts wagging its tail. Now let's read further. The little dog was hungry. It came close to the boy. It sat down on its hind legs. It opened its mouth for the sandwich. But the boy didn't give the dog anything to eat. Instead, he gave the poor animal a hard kick in the belly. The little dog yelped in pain. It ran away from the boy. The boy began to laugh. How cruel he was! Mr. Roy saw all this. I must teach this boy a lesson, he said to himself. Let's understand the difficult words we came across so far. The first word is hungry, which means wanting to eat. So, if the dog is hungry, it means the dog wants to eat the food. Just tell us how you feel when you are hungry. Do you feel something in the stomach at that time? Next word is hind legs. But before we get to its meaning, we know that most of the animals move on four legs. For such animals, hind legs are the legs on the back side of their body. In this picture, you can see the dog sitting on its hind legs, that is on two of its back legs, with the front two legs up in air. The next word is instead. Instead means in place of something. हिंदी में इसका मतलब होता है किसी की जगह पर. Example: Instead of Ram, Rohit is going to the party. This means राम की जगह पर रोहित पार्टी में जा रहा है. Next we have kick. Kick is an action of striking something with a lot of force using your foot. In this picture, you can see this man kicking the football. Belly. Belly is a term which means the stomach and the region surrounding it. Can you just rub your hand on your belly? A person is said to be cruel if he tries to hurt or cause pain to someone without feeling any concern about it. मतलब जानबूझकर जो दूसरों को तकलीफ देते हैं ऐसे लोगों को हम क्रूअल बोलते हैं। The next word is saw. Saw is the past tense of see. Now we come across the phrase dog yelped in pain. This phrase means a sharp cry of pain that the dog makes when it is feeling the pain. In the clip below, we can hear the puppy yelping. The last phrase is teach this boy a lesson. When you teach someone a lesson, you punish them to make sure that the person does not repeat the same thing again. Now let's understand what we have read so far. Mr. Roy watches a boy asking the dog if it wants to eat the sandwich. The hungry dog comes close to the boy and sits on its hind legs. Just then, instead of giving the dog anything to eat, the boy kicks the dog hard in the belly, due to which the dog starts yelping. Seeing this, Mr. Roy decides to teach the boy a lesson. Now, let's read further. Mr. Roy got up and came out into the street. He had a stick in his hand. He called out to the boy in a kindly tone. The boy at once came to Mr. Roy. Mr. Roy took out from his pocket a thick chocolate bar. He showed it to the boy and said, "Oh boy, do you want this chocolate bar?" "Yes, please," said the boy happily. "Then have it," said Mr. Roy. Now we will discuss the difficult words. The first phrase is got up. Got up means to stand up. Next word, came, is the past tense of come. The phrase call out to the boy means to call someone in order to bring them closer to you. The next phrase is kindly tone. It refers to the voice which is very kind and pleasing to hear. The next phrase is at once. At once is a phrase which means in a moment. Took is past tense of take. Similarly, showed is the past tense of show. Happily means in a happy manner. We will now conclude. In order to teach the boy a lesson for hitting the dog, Mr. Roy comes out of his home with a stick and a chocolate bar. Then he calls the boy in a very kind manner and asks him if he wants to eat the thick chocolate bar. The boy gets happy and says yes. Now let's see what happens next. The boy stretched out his hand for the chocolate bar, but Mr. Roy put it back into his pocket. Instead of giving the boy any chocolate, he gave him a sharp blow with his stick. The boy yelped in pain. "Why did you hit me?" he asked angrily. "I didn't ask you for your chocolate." "And that little dog didn't ask you for your sandwich," said Mr. Roy. "Then why did you hit it?" Now let's understand the difficult words. The next phrase is stretched out. Stretched out is a phrase which means to bring something forward by unfolding it. So, if the boy stretched out his hand, it means he unfolded it and brought it forward. Kindly watch the video below. It will give you a clear idea of what stretching out is. This is the action of stretching out the hand. The phrase put it back means to keep something back in its original place. Sharp blow means to hit suddenly with a lot of force. In this picture, you can see Mr. Roy suddenly hitting the boy with his stick. So you can say Mr. Roy gave the boy a sharp blow. The next phrase is cried in pain. Cried in pain is a phrase that means to shout because of pain. The last word is angrily, which means in an angry manner. So far, we have read that Mr. Roy decides to teach the boy a lesson. He asks him if he wants the chocolate bar, for which the boy puts his hand forward. Mr. Roy, instead of giving the boy a chocolate bar, hits him hard on his hand with his stick, which makes him scream out of pain. He then, in an angry manner, asks Mr. Roy the reason for hitting him even when he didn't ask for the chocolate. Mr. Roy asks him why did he hit the dog even when the little dog didn't ask him for his sandwich. Now let's read further. The boy hung his head in shame. He was sorry for what he had done. There were tears in his eyes. Did the blow hurt you? Asked Mr. Roy. Yes, uncle. It hurt me so much. So now you know what pain you gave to that little animal. Forgive me, uncle, said the boy. I will never do that again. Now let's understand the meaning. The phrase hung his head in shame means to lower your head because you are ashamed of what you have done. In this picture, you can see the man has hung his head in shame. When do you see tears in someone's eyes? It is when they cry. Therefore, the phrase tears in eyes means to cry. The next word is hurt. It means to cause pain to someone. The next word gave is the past tense of give. The last word forgive means to pardon. If somebody asks you sorry and you forgive them, it means you pardon them for whatever wrong they have done to you. In Hindi, it means maaf karna. Now we will conclude. So, when Mr. Roy questions the boy about hitting the poor dog for no reason, he feels ashamed and asks sorry for it with tears in his eyes. Then Mr. Roy asks him if the blow has caused him pain, to which the boy responds in yes. The boy then asks Mr. Roy to forgive him and promises him to never do such a thing again. Now we will read further. Good, and you must remember this, said Mr. Roy. Don't be cruel to little birds and animals. They too feel pain like us. I promise, uncle, said the boy. God made all things, big and small. Love God's things, and God will love you, said Mr. Roy. The boy folded his hands in respect and went away. Mr. Roy walked back into his house. He was smiling. Now let's understand the meaning of difficult words. First, we have a phrase folded his hands in respect. This phrase means to press your hands together with your fingers pointing up. If you can see the picture below, you will see it is the Namaskar Mudra, which is quite popular in India. We fold our hands in respect whenever we either greet someone or pray or ask for forgiveness. The word went is the past tense of go. Lastly, we have a phrase walk back into something. This phrase means to go back into that place. Example: the lion walked back into its den means that the lion went back into its den. In this last slide, we read that the boy feels ashamed for hitting the dog and asks for forgiveness from Mr. Roy. In turn, Mr. Roy advises the boy to not to be cruel with animals as they too feel the pain like us. The boy promises the same and goes away. Mr. Roy goes back into his home smiling. This story teaches us we should never hurt any animal and be kind to them as they too have feelings like humans. We must love all the big and small things that the God made. With this, we reach the end of the reading portion for this chapter. In the next video, I will put all the exercises that students need to do in their notebooks. We would appreciate if you can give us your feedback about this video. Thank you.